Good morning, my fellow humans. I'm going to be doing something very, very different this year with my YouTube channel. So, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to start a series called Having Bible Study with an Atheist. And we are going to go through the entire Bible. So, you might be thinking, why would an atheist want to have Bible study? Because I want to have Bible study with you because if you have Bible study with an atheist, then it will most likely be a Bible study that you will not forget. Okay? Because the purpose of having Bible study with the atheist, it will be for to introduce you to looking at the Bible from a critical thinking point of view, and also looking for evidence, and not just blindly believing what your pastor say or what your parents say, but you should know the Bible for yourself. I've read the whole Bible before. I read the whole book from the front to the back. I've already read the whole Bible, but a lot of Christians, they don't even know what's in the Bible. Now, some Christians have read the whole Bible, but a lot has not. So I just want to encourage you to read the Bible and to know what's in there, and to also think for yourself. And don't be afraid to have your own thoughts, and don't let anybody tell you how to think. But the Bible, it has a big influence on Western civilization. Especially Europe and America, the Bible did play a big part in the ideas of these two continents, Europe and America, and so and also in other countries around the world. Now, even though I'm an atheist, I have to be honest and admit that the Bible. I have to admit that the Bible did have a huge influence um, globally. I cannot ignore that, even though I'm an atheist. So, and when I say it played a big role in Western civilization, the Bible have inspired a lot of literature, and the Bible also inspired a lot of art, especially the Europeans. They made art related to the Bible. But anyways, I'm gonna jump into this, and we are going to get going. Oh, but by the way, my name is Sharice, and I am a former Christian. I was a Christian for almost 29 years. I was born into a Christian household. Both of my parents were pastors. I was homeschooled. I went to a Bible Christian college, and I graduated from Maranatha Baptist Bible College. So I was born into Christianity, was homeschooled, Christian homeschooled, and I went to a Christian college and graduated from there. And I am now an atheist. And so, because when I got older, I began to have my own thoughts, and I began to engage in critical thinking. And I want to encourage you to also engage in critical thinking. And you don't have to be an atheist. I'm not going to tell you what to believe and how to believe, but I would like to encourage you to get involved in critical thinking and logic. All right, so here we go. I'm going to read Genesis. I'm going to start Genesis 1:1. We're going to read the first chapter of Genesis. And when I hold my finger up, that means I'm giving my own inputs on it. And I want to encourage you to think about what's being read. All right, so here we go. We are going to start. And I'm going to let you know what Bible I'm reading out of. You see this? See this Bible? I'm reading from the New Catholic Bible, St. Joseph's edition. Now, I was not raised Catholic. I was raised Protestant, evangelical Christianity. It's more of a mainstream Christianity, and I grew up among the Baptist Christians. But don't yell at me, please. Don't yell at me from reading out of the Catholic Bible. The Genesis story is the same in the Catholic Bible and also in the Protestant Bible. It's the same story. So don't yell at me for reading out of the Catholic Bible. All right, so here we go. We're going to start. Okay. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and barren, and darkness covered the abyss, while the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. Okay, I gotta hold up my finger. It says God created light. How could there be light when there was no sun? What was the light? It's something for you to think about. Okay? So it says God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. And he called the light day, and he called the darkness night. This was the evening and the morning of the first day. All right, question. How can you have morning and evening, and how can you have day and night without the sun? Think about it. All right, there's no sun. There's day, there's morning, there's evening, but there's no sun. Okay, so the man who wrote this, he didn't know that much about science. He didn't know the basics of science. Like, I know a little bit of science, but the man who wrote Genesis, they knew way less science than me and the average sixth grader, you know. So yeah, this is a problem. This is a problem. It says there was evening and morning of the first day. You have evening and morning and no sun. Okay, that's something to think about. It's one of the mistakes that the writer wrote. All right, moving on. God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters to separate one set of water from the other." God separated the firmament from the waters, those waters that are under the firmament from those that are above the firmament. And it was so. God called the firmament the heavens. This was the evening and morning of the second day. So question, how can you have evening and morning of the second day when there's no sun? Okay, the sun was not created yet. So, moving on. God said, "Let the water that are under the heavens be gathered into the place, and let a dry place appear." And it was so. God called the dry place the land, and the gathered waters he called the sea. And God saw that it was good. God said, "Let the land bring forth plants, and those that produce seeds." Okay, question. How can you have plants without the sun? All right, moving on. So yeah, God brought forth plants, those that produce seeds, and fruit trees that have seeds inside of the. Now I'm about to turn the page. Just turning the page right now. These pages are thin. I gotta be careful. All right, so I'm moving on. So God made fruit trees. They bear each according to its own kind, and it was so. The land brought forth plants, each according to its kind, and trees that have fruit with seeds inside of them, each according to its kind. God saw that they were good. This was evening and morning of the third day. Okay, so it's the third day. No sun. But there's vegetables and there's plants and fruit trees on the earth, but no sun. You can't have vegetation and plant life without the sun. So this is another mistake that the writer made. Okay, so moving on. God said, "Let there be light in the firmament of the heavens to separate the day from the night." Finally, on the fourth day, we get the sun. On the fourth day, finally. Okay? Let the markers to separate seasons and days and years, and let them be light in the firmament of the heavens to give light to the earth. And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule over the day, and the lesser light to rule over the night. And he also made the stars. Now the man who wrote this, he did not know that the sun was a star. And he also didn't know that the moon shines at night because of the sun. If the sun did not exist, then we would not even see the moon. But the man who wrote this, he just didn't know. He didn't know this. So moving on. God placed them in the firmament of the heavens to light the earth. It's talking about the stars. And to rule over the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. This was the evening and the morning of the fourth day. Wow, so on day 4, we finally get the sun. Wow. Okay, moving on. God said, let the waters be filled with living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth in the firmament of the heavens. God created the great sea creatures and all the other creatures that fill the waters, each according to its kind, and all the birds that fly in the sky, each according to its kind. God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the water of the sea, and let the birds multiply upon the earth. And this was the evening and the morning of the 5th day. Moving on. God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures, each according to its own kind, cattle, reptiles, wild animals, each according to its kind, and it was so. God made the savage beasts according to their kind, and the cattle according to their kind, and all the reptiles according to their kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make man in our image and likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals and reptiles that crawl upon the earth. God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and told them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living creature that move upon the earth. And God said, behold, I give you every plant that produces seeds upon the earth, and every tree that has fruit with its seed inside of it. These shall be your food, and I give all green plants to every wild animals, and to all the birds of the air, and to all the creatures that move upon the surface of the earth, and that have the breath of life in them. And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. This was the evening and morning of the 6th day. Okay, so as we were reading this, God is saying, let us make man in our own image. Who is God talking to when God said, let us make man in our own image? Is he talking to other gods? Because God is supposed to be the only God, right? Now, I went to Sunday school as a child. You know, I was basically born in church. Not literally, but as a newborn baby, my mom brought me to church because while she was pregnant, she was a Christian. She was a Christian before I was born. So I was born into the Christian environment. And I was told as really early, I can remember, you know, at age 5, that there was only one God. But when I read the book of Genesis, God is saying, let us make man in our own image. It seems like he's talking to somebody else, you know. Like, I was taught that there was only one God. But it seems like, according to the ancient world, these people they believe in more than one God, you know. So, but as we read more into the Bible, eventually it's going to say that there is one God, and it's going to match similar to how I was raised. But yeah, there are a few problems in Genesis chapter 1, and it's good for you to think about. Um, so next time I read from the Bible, it's going to be chapter 2 of Genesis. And um, I just want to leave you with this thought. Most of us are familiar with the Bible story of the garden that God created, and He put Adam and Eve in it. Most of us know who Adam and Eve are, according to the Bible, the first man and woman who were made. And most of us are aware that God put the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the middle of the garden. Now, Adam and Eve, they were new people who were made, and they're not going to really know the difference between right and wrong. And so, but why the heck would God put a tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, in the middle of the garden? Oh, to test them, to test Adam and Eve. But Adam and Eve, even though they had adult bodies, their brains were new. They were new to the earth. They were kind of like little children. So putting the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the middle of the garden, that's equivalent to an adult who has two little kids who are aged 3 and 5, leaving a weapon, a pew pew weapon, in the middle of the table, or leaving a huge sharp knife in the middle of the table in the living room with a 3-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy, and just walking away, walking out the house, and leaving 2 little kids in the house with a sharp knife in the middle of the living room table. That's very irresponsible. Of course, one of the little kids are going to play with it and hurt themselves, or maybe they will hurt the other kid. Something bad is going to happen. You can't just leave a large, sharp knife on the living room table when you have 2 little kids walking around. Okay, so Adam and Eve were new people with new brains. They didn't know that. They did not know that much. They didn't know much of anything. And God gives them a test almost right away. Here's a tree in the middle of the garden. Don't eat it. And I wish that Adam was smart enough to say, okay, God, you know what? If you don't want me to eat this tree, can you just let me chop it down? Can I chop down the tree and burn it up and get rid of it? Like, what's the point of having this tree here in the middle of the garden to tempt me? God, can we just get rid of this tree, this forbidden tree? You know, that would have been much better. But God was testing these kids. It was not a good test, though. It's just like it's not good for a parent to leave a gun in the middle of the living room table where little kids can mess with it. That's pretty bad. That's pretty stupid. The parent will go to jail if they leave a weapon in the living room table with 2 little kids walking around. The parent will definitely go to jail, especially if one of the kids hurt themselves or another with a weapon. Silly. So that's how I feel about it. But yeah, it's good for you to think about this. And I want you to consider, I'm not telling you what to think, but I'm telling you to at least consider that this story might be a myth. There are other creation stories. There's the Native American Indians. They have their own creation story. In the Quran, yes, I have read the Quran too. The Quran, they have a different creation story, but I can tell it was inspired by the Bible because the Bible was written first. So there's also, the Hindus, they have a different creation story. The Buddhists, they have a different creation story. In Japan, they have their different creation story. In China, they have a different creation story. There's many different creation stories everywhere. So the Bible is not the only book story that has a creation story. There's so many cultures. There's so many different creation stories. Which one is true? Probably none of them. This could be a myth that ancient people wrote a long time ago. So I just want you to consider that thought. And I will talk to you later. Goodbye.